an engagement actually came about as a result of coronavirus. I immediately wanted to read the story. How could an engagement have come about as a result of coronavirus? And this is what I read. You know, in Israel, there are a lot of buildings that they are doing minions on the porches. It's called porch minions. Everyone in the condominium goes out on their porches, on their balconies at a certain time, and they have a minion together with plenty of social distancing. And there was a certain woman, mother, she was out on her balcony, and she saw the way there was a bacher on another balcony, a young yeshiva boy, who was davening with great passion, with feeling, with concentration. And she observed him every morning, Shachris, Mincha, afternoon, Ma'ariv, day after day. She was very impressed and very taken by his sincerity, by his devotion, by his spirituality. And she started to ask about him. And when she heard all the wonderful things about what kind of a young man he is with wonderful character, she asked someone to maybe suggest it for her daughter. And since they live in the same building, they were able to somehow, with social distancing, start dating. And this week they got engaged. Mazel tov, the two fathers met and said l'chaim. There was no party, but a shidduch came about as a result of coronavirus. And it reminded me immediately of the story in the Torah. It says when Eliezer was sent by Abraham to find a wife for Isaac, he went and found Rebekah. The way he knew Rebekah was the suitable bride was because she had the trait of chesed, of kindness. She drew water not only for Eliezer, the servant of Abraham, but for the camels. And then the Torah says when Eliezer brought Rivka back to the land of Israel to marry Isaac, it says that Vayetze Yitzchak lasuach basada. Isaac went out into the field to pray, to meditate. And the first thing, the first glimpse that Rebekah had of her future husband was of him praying. When you see a person experiencing a religious experience, that in itself is inspiring. To watch someone else connect spiritually. You could learn a lot about a person by the way he prays, the way he studies Torah, the way he interacts with people. And here we have a very powerful lesson. This week's parsha is all about proper speech, speaking positive, not negative words, not speaking lashon hara, but speaking lashon tov, not speaking evil speech, but positive speech. The prohibitions of gossip, of slander, are all found in this week's Torah portion. But the name of the person who was punished for speaking lashon hara was the Mitzorah. He was afflicted with a form of leprosy in biblical times. And the rabbis say, you know what the root of the word Mitzorah is? One of the roots is motzi ra. They omit bad words. They poison, pollute the atmosphere with what we would consider today like secondhand pollution, secondhand smoke. They cause others to be poisoned with their negative worldview of others. But furthermore, rabbis say the word mitzorah is from the word tsar, narrow. We all know the word sarot, afflictions, but it's from the word tsar. I'm in a confined, narrow space. And the rabbis say, what part of the person's body who speaks lashon hara is narrow? The rabbis say the eyes. Tsar ayin, they have a narrow eye. The reason we speak negatively about others is because of our narrow eye. We don't have a broad, generous eye. We have a narrow eye. We zoom in on what is negative rather than what is positive about the other person. And once you notice what is negative, you speak bad about others rather than good. I'll tell you, I've been a rabbi for 26 years. I never dreamt that I would experience what I'm experiencing now. Over the past 4 weeks, I have officiated at a Zoom bris, circumcision. I officiated at a Zoom bar mitzvah. I participated in a Zoom wedding. I participated tragically in a Zoom funeral. And just last night I officiated at a Zoom Shiva call, Shiva meeting. And here I said, here's the whole cycle of life, from birth to bar mitzvah to wedding to funeral to a Shiva. And it was all done through Zoom. And it taught me 2 lessons. The first thing is we live in a day that the power of the eye is so great. You could be sitting across the world and you could zoom in on anything you want. And so too in our lives, we have to zoom in on what's good, what's positive. We could choose what we want to see. And second of all, that there's nothing that could separate one from another. We could connect with each other and share words of love and joy. The love in the simcha of the bris or the bar mitzvah, the wedding, came across because the power of the eye connection. And as a matter of fact, the rabbis say that the affliction that the leper would get was called a nega, an affliction. But our rabbis say, the Chassam Sofer says, if you rearrange the three letters of nega, you could spell the word oneg, which means pleasure and delight. Now rabbis say something so powerful. The eye could be a source of nega, affliction, or it could be the source of oneg, the greatest delight, the greatest pleasure. And you may say, well, how can I control what my eye sees? And the answer is, you choose what you want to zoom in on, what you want to harness, what you want to focus on, what you want to dwell on, what you want to see with your physical eye or with your mind's eye. And like a camera that has a shutter, every time we open and close our eyes, we take a mental picture. And we store that picture in our mind, and it could be a source of great joy or great bitterness and sadness. That is our free choice. That's why God gave us eyelids. It's a beautiful story in the Talmud. Talmud says that in the 3rd century, there was a great rabbi, his name was Rabbi Yanai. And he was sitting and studying. He lived in the city of Tzipori in the northern Galilee. He was sitting and studying in his home, and he heard a peddler, a rochel, outside selling his wares. And he was saying, who wants to buy the potion of life? Who wants to buy the formula for long life, for longevity? And he saw people were gathering around this peddler. So the Talmud says Rabbi Yanai left his apartment. He came running down, and he came to the man. He said, I want to buy the potion, elixir for long life. And the peddler says, people like you don't need my longevity potion. And he says, no, I insist. He said, fine, I'll sell it to you. What is it? He said. He said, it's what King David writes in the book of Psalms. Mi ha'ish hachafetz chaim. Who is the person who wants to live a long life? Ohev yamim l'rotov, and wants to see goodness and joy in his long life or her long life. 3 words. Nitzar l'shoncha merah. Guard your tongue from speaking evil. And Rabbi Yanai said to the peddler, thank you for selling me, for sharing with me this secret. All my life I didn't know it. Now you shared it with me. And the question the rabbi says, all his life he didn't understand this? It's an open, simple verse in the book of Psalms. Everyone knows this verse. Who wants long life? Guard your tongue from speaking evil. And the commentators explain something very beautiful, very deep, very profound. They say, Rabbi Yanai always said, you know, if you want to guard your tongue from speaking evil, you have to be like a hermit, a recluse, sitting in isolation in the study hall in your home and not interact with people. Because if you talk to people, sooner or later you're going to speak Lashon Hara. He said, but here is a man who's a rochel. He is a peddler. And by the way, one of the terms for Lashon Hara is rechilut. Why? Because you peddle other people's information. And everyone knows if you're a salesman, right? You got to go from town to town, from house to house. You got to be a schmoozer. You got to have the gift of gab. You have to know how to have conversation. And to be a good conversationalist, you have to have good stories, juicy stories, interesting stories. You have to be the center of attention. And he said, wow, what the peddler taught me was that you don't have to hide out in order to avoid Lashon Hara. You could be in the main street of the city. You could be going from town to town, from house to house, observing, seeing, experiencing so many different things. And yet, what you saw that's not positive, you keep to yourself. And you only share the good things, the positivity that you experienced and that you witnessed. He said to be able to be a peddler and spend your life interacting with people and still guard your tongue from speaking evil, that is something I never understood. And today, we're not just peddlers. We're on the internet. We're on social media. We're on all sorts of news reports and with comments and Facebook and Instagram, and we're constantly interacting with the whole world. And that could be a blessing or a curse. It could be a blessing like Zoom, that we could attend other simchas or other events in life that we ordinarily couldn't attend, but through the camera we can now see each other and we could share words of love, of joy, of blessings, of comfort, whatever the occasion may be. Or we could use our eye to zoom in on what's wrong, what's negative about others. And then instead of having oneg, pleasure, tragically we will bring upon ourselves nega. But I think King David meant his words very literally, not just figuratively. It's not just, if you want to live a long life spiritually, guard your tongue from speaking evil. I believe that physically people who guard their tongue from speaking evil and see positive live longer life. And I think science proves this today. If you have a positive mindset, you see good, you dwell on the good, you're happier. When you're happier, you physically have longevity, you live a longer life. On the other hand, tragically, we see time and again that people who engage in discord, people who engage in rifts, in quarrels, in bickering, in fighting, they bring stress and aggravation and bitterness into their lives, which literally tragically shortens their lifespan. How many times do you hear stories of people, friends, family members, who get into bitter rivalries and it literally costs them their health, parents and children, grandparents and grandchildren, brothers and sisters. And so King David's giving us great advice. He's saying, who doesn't want to live a long life? You want to live a long life? You want to live a happy life? It's very simple. Notice the good in others and speak positively about others. Zoom in on what's good, and then you'll have a happy and long life. In conclusion, there's a rabbi in California. His name is Rabbi Yitzi Horowitz. He's a young man in his late 40s, a father of 7 children, a husband, Chabad rabbi. And about 4 or 5 years ago, he was afflicted with a horrible disease, ALS. And things have deteriorated so badly that he is now literally paralyzed. And you can read about him. He's on the internet. And the reason he's on the internet is because he publishes a weekly Dvar Torah as a rabbi on the internet every week that he disseminates. And even though he's completely paralyzed, and he's been laying in a bed paralyzed for years now, he cannot even move his pinky. He still writes this article. How does he do it? He has a computer in front of him, and with the blinks of his eye, he could type letters. And to write one essay on the Torah portion every week literally takes him the entire day, Thursday, from morning to night, because he painstakingly has to blink one letter at a time on the computer to type out his message. The way he communicates loving words with his wife, with his children, with his friends, with his family who come to visit him and surround him with love is through the blinking of the eye. And when you think about this, it's so powerful. It's powerful what a hero he is. But it's also powerful to notice the power of the eye. When the rabbis say it's all about the eye, a narrow eye or a wide eye. If you have a narrow eye, no matter how blessed you are, you only see bad. But if you have a good, generous, loving eye, with that little eye, with the eye alone, you could generate so much love, so much warmth. And as he always says, my life may be diminished, but I see the good, the blessing, that I have a wonderful wife, wonderful children, that I could express my love to them. And when you think about Rabbi Yitzi Horowitz, who sits there and types each letter to his children, what he would do to have the gift of speech. He would be willing to do anything to be given just the power to speak. Forget about the rest of his body. Just to be able to speak to his wife and children and his friends and his parents and his loved ones. We who are blessed to have the gift of speech, are we going to abuse it? Are we going to utilize it properly, or God forbid, use it to harm others? As King Solomon says, "Hachayim v'hamaved biyad haloshon." Life and death are in the power of the tongue. God gave us many blessings, many gifts, but one of the greatest gifts He gave us was speech. And that speech today, even in quarantine, could be used to call people, to speak with one another, and to use communication on the internet to see each other with our positive eyes and our positive words. Let this week's parsha and the circumstances where we find ourselves in now be an inspiration to us to not only now, but for now and forever, recognize the gift we have of love, of friendship, and utilize the 2 greatest gifts God gave us, the power of sight and the power of speech, in a positive way. And not only will we enhance other people's lives, but will actually bring longevity, happiness, and good health to our very selves. Wishing you a beautiful, loving, and a happy day.